Hey everybody, Stu Smith here. I'm live. I have a few things to chat about a little bit as people come on and ask questions. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about a running program because as the weather starts to break, people start wanting to get back more into running, especially if you're into my programming where we do more of a winter lift cycle. And we are now probably only running about 10, maybe 12 miles a week, um, sometimes 15, but we keep it pretty low comparatively because we focus mainly on um, more non impact cardio activity and um, lifting. Work on some strength and power, trying to maintain some muscle stamina, as well as trying to maintain some endurance. But we give our legs a break in the winter just from the pure impact. And typically we have some people who might have overdone it in the past. So maybe they're licking their wounds over the winter, coming off of maybe a big race or big event, big selection program. And that's why we use that winter lift cycle. It tends to give us a little chance to rebuild, strengthen some joints, and lay off the impact activity. But here's where people go wrong: is they go wrong by jumping back into a running program right where they left off. So, if you were doing, high mileage running 4 or 5 months ago, but you've been lifting all winter, maybe you've had some shin splint issues or knee tendonitis issues you were dealing with. Um, you know, some people start right back up and they go do a 4 or 5 mile run, and then they wonder why, the next day their legs hurt, knees hurt. You got to progress back into it. And that's really what I wanted to share. And I'll share a link in the description below, and it's basically a running program. We use this running program for many years now, and it's a good way to kind of ramp out of the winter lift cycle. However, you don't want to jump right into it either, because the first week I think is 15 miles of running in a week. So if you're not used to doing that, that's not something you want to jump into. So there's an actual true beginner runners program. If you've been injured, you've recovered from injury, now you're ready to get back started running again, and it's real simple. You run, if you can, 5 days a week. If you need to run every other day, that's kind of another level of beginner. I usually have a real beginner who maybe he needs to lose weight a little bit, maybe run just every other day, and it's short, simple, mile and a half max, those days. And then on the days in between, they really hit the non-impact cardio: bike, elliptical, swimming, rowing, those type of things that aren't going to hurt you, but you'll at least get your lungs in better shape. Because that's half of running. Half of running is getting your legs durable, and the other half is getting your conditioning up so you can do it. Not much different than swimming, really, except for swimming rarely hurts you, other than maybe some shoulder tendonitis or something. So anyway, half of it is technique, durability. Other half is conditioning. So what we do is I'll take that beginner and just have them run every day, 1 mile a day. Do a lot of stretching, but they're also adding in significant amount of non-impact activity. So they're rowing, they're biking, they're swimming, all those activities just stay up, because 1 mile of running is not going to be enough cardiovascular activity, especially as you're ramping up into a endurance, high repetition muscle stamina cycle like we do in the spring and summer. Which, by the way, I have a new program out. It should be out by leap year day. So end of February, I'll have a new program out called the Spring Summer Lift PT Cardio Cycle. So it's very similar to the fall winter lift cycle that we created. It's 24 weeks long. However, it's just flipped upside down, different workouts. but you're going to transition out of a lift cycle with about 50-50 lift calisthenics and a running progression. And then in the summer, it's mostly calisthenics and a higher progression of running. But if you guys want to chat a little bit about typical running programs, we can, if you got those in the questions. But like if I have a beginner runner who's constantly nursing something, knee tendonitis or shin splints, we either don't run at all, or if he's all cleared from the physical therapist, he's ready to run, you got to start with a logical running progression that's very minimal, a mile, and you can make that a quarter mile sprints. You can do just a mile steady run. You can do some sprint jog type work. I personally like to try to find my goal pace again. So if I'm shooting for a 6-minute mile pace to run a 1.5 miles or maybe a 3-mile run, I'm going to try to make sure that all my quarter miles are at 90 seconds. My half miles are at 3 miles. And as I progress, my miles at 6 minutes. And then you can take that into whatever distance you are training for by just extending your sets and distances over the weeks. But that first week is real easy. Mile a day, 5 days a week. Second set or second week is maybe a 1.5 miles. Third week, typically third week, statistically speaking, most people get injured third week of starting a running program. And when I say injured, minor aches and pains, knees hurt, shins hurt, feet hurt. And so we tend to pull back a little bit on that third week just to kind of aggressively pursue that recovery so you don't get injured and do more non-impact that week, biking or swimming, things like that. Let's see. After that, you kind of pick back up. You're going into 2 miles a week. So after about 4 or 2 miles a day, after about 4 or 5 weeks, you've built up to roughly 10 miles a week. Maybe if you start a little bit later, you can handle a little bit more of a progression. You maybe went up to 12 or 15. Then you're ready for what I call the Spec Ops running program that starts off week 1 at about 15 miles a week. And by week 25, builds up to about, I think it's 30, 35, somewhere in that zone, depending on how you pick and choose your cardio activities that day. So you do have some options to make it more or make it less, depending on your abilities and how you're feeling. Someone just asked about running in boots. I personally think you should run in boots some, but that is also a progression, just like with rucking. You don't want to start off rucking with a 60-pound ruck in boots, when you're not even running. You don't even have a running program yet. So, I suggest this, get your running program done in regular running shoes, maybe once a week. Once you are feeling pretty good with your running and you're able to maintain, say, 18, 20 miles a week without injury, add a set of boots on just one day. Maybe for one of the shorter runs or the longer runs, it's kind of up to you, depending on how you feel. But breaking in your boots is very important. That's really what you're doing. Getting used to boots nowadays is not the same because they're so light. These boots that you get, either you get the Bates 924s or 922s. Those are pretty light. However, they're even lighter now. I think Buds is using the Nike Combat Gen 2. You hold those in your hand and it feels like a running shoe. So they're definitely running boots. Let's see. Let's take some questions. If you guys got more questions on the running program, ask or read the link below, because I just wrote a pretty good article, and I'll put it in the description of this video, about the different types of running programs depending on who you are, your types of injuries that you're prone to getting, and what your goals are, because some people don't need to build up to 30 miles a week, right? Let's see. How many miles a week should you run in boots? Just answered that one. Is it worth becoming an officer? Yeah, I thought it was worth it. It's what I chose, and glad I did it. Um, is it fine to run strength power alongside speed training? Yes, those two work very well together. I mean, if you look at football summer training before the season starts, what are you doing? You're lifting hard and you're doing sprints. That they all work very well together. So strength, power, speed, agility are all part of that same cycle. You can work on those four elements of fitness very well together. Where it gets hard is when you go into higher mileage. It's hard to get good at both. So, what I mean by that, if you have a weakness of, let's say, 3 mile runs or a mile and a half timed runs, and you think anything over 100 yards is long distance, getting into that mindset of being able to run faster at that mile and a half while you're doing a lot of heavy lifting on your legs, it's a hard transition. And it's very hard to, one, keep up with your strength when you're doing that, but it's also hard to get faster at that higher pace. You can get faster in sprints, very hard to get it when you're doing endurance. Can you maintain both once you have it? Absolutely. And there are cycles for that as well. I see you got a second part of this question. I'm been trying to focus on getting my mile times down before building back up to the higher mileage week in the spring. Yeah, that's fine. Um, that's how we do it. Our spring transition kind of goes from very little running, like I mentioned, the 10, 12 miles a week, into maintaining that 10 to 12 miles a week, but we make it a lot faster. We start adding about a 10% progression each week. So week 1 might be 13 or 14 miles a week. And then week 2 might be 15 miles a week. Week 3 might be 16, 17 miles a week. May throw a ruck in there somewhere in that equation, depending on what we tend to call it like our leg days. Instead of turning into heavy lifting days, our leg days tend to evolve into rucking, hill runs, jumps, swimming with fins. All of those are really good ways to work the legs, especially if you got that strength foundation already built, and now we got to add in a endurance, muscle stamina foundation on top of it. So let's see. What do you think of downhill skiing as a form of cardio? Don't know. Be honest with you. I grew up in Florida, so we didn't have a lot of opportunities at downhill skiing. I've been skiing a few times. It's pretty hard. I mean, I guess you could call it some form of cardio. It's not going to make you faster at running, but hey, never know. If you get your heart going up, it is a form of cardio. How about that? Have you ever encountered someone that can ruck fast but experiences leg muscle failure when running fast? Yeah, I guess. Some of the bigger, stronger guys have big legs. Maybe they grew up playing football, rugby, those type of lifts, doing those type of heavy lifts to get big legs. May have a harder time with the lighter weight, longer endurance stuff. But rucking, fast is basically a fast walk versus a run. So a lot of people tend to shuffle and get a little faster. Maybe if you shuffle short, it's a little bit different than running. So it's I never run while I ruck, but I shuffle run. I have shorter strides and focus on having a higher RPM, which helps me to not have any overstriding going on that can put some strain on the legs. But you can still get your pace down to like a 10-minute mile. I have seen guys like we had this weekend when we did our Spec Ops try. Those guys were hitting sub 8 miles on their ruck, and it was pretty impressive. But they did it with shorter strides. They weren't doing it like a normal running stride. So maybe you should try that. Practice running a little more with a normal running stride, and then see how rucking feels, keeping it the same. Be honest with you, you just got to practice running at your certain pace that you want to do. Now, if you're a big guy and let's say running hurts you, my suggestion is, for a while, run every other day with a very hard non-impact activity thrown in. It can be biking with Tabata intervals. It can be sprints with the swims, rowing, go hard on the assault bikes. Those things are really good, and get your heart rate up really high with them. We do it a couple different ways with kind of pyramids. Every minute gets a little harder with speed and resistance until you just can't go up any further. Try to maintain that for a couple minutes and then come back down. That's a good way to do a kind of a cardio pyramid on a bike. Very hard. Every minute on the minute, make it harder. Let's see. Have a ship date in March. Good. Coming up soon. Can't get my run past 9:50. Yeah, you need to get faster. However, if your 4 mile is at that pace, that's pretty good. 9:50s, you might not have a good mile and a half PST time, but you're already in, so it doesn't really matter. You go super fast. I would rather you get better at 4 mile timed runs and see if you can get that at a 7-minute pace for 4 miles, because that's what you're going to be tested. Your future is going to be tested every week with a 4 mile timed run at roughly. If you can get it at 7-minute mile pace, you can get 4 miles in 28 minutes. You're well above the curve of failing. That's going to just put you in a good category of taking these weekly 4 mile timed run tests. I personally, if you got a ship date and you're shipping in March, I wouldn't worry about your PST mile and a half. Keep it at 9:30, 9:50. That's good enough. But get your 4 mile and 5 mile runs down to a 7-minute mile pace, and be able to handle that. So that's what I would do, because that's your future, right? You've kind of gotten to the training. Now you got to get through the training. However, I will say this. You need to have some cushion in there with your run, because you're going to take another PST at boot camp, or I guess at prep. And if you fail that, you're out of the program. So don't get close to failing. So be able to hit your 6 to 7 minute mile pace on your PST and be able to hit the same on your 4 mile timed run if you can. That's my recommendation. I've got cardio to run 5 miles, no problem, but my legs aren't built to the weight I put on. How do you suggest building up to leg and tendon strength? Same way. Just because your lungs can handle it doesn't mean you should do it. Try this. Try challenging your lungs by running faster, but running shorter. That's going to be a better progression for you than jumping into a slow 5 mile run and just beating your legs up. Besides, who cares about how slow you can run 10 miles, 6 miles, whatever? Let's see how fast you can run 4 miles. That is the bigger goal for you. Especially whatever your distance is that you're shooting for your selection, and you're going to be timed on that. You should be mastering that. Yes, it's good to kind of get a cardio base and hit a long run every now and then, but it doesn't need to be a part of your daily running cycle. You need to focus on your speed, but also focus on your goal pace running that you want to hit for timed runs. So there's nothing wrong to mix in some 100-yard, 200, 300-yard sprints, but then mix in a day of just quarter mile and half miles at your goal pace, multiple sets of that. So I would say maybe limit your total mileage to 3 miles, but do the math and figure out how many quarters and half miles you can do until you get that distance. That's a good way to build up to that. And then mix in some squats, lunges, sit ups, push ups as a rest exercise, depending on your upper body or leg day. So, but that's how I would build up leg strength. We do this one workout called Run and Leg PT, where we run a half mile, hit some squats, run a half mile back, hit some lunges, just do it back and forth. A great warm up, I think, is the old squat pyramid. I posted it up on Instagram the other day, where you do one squat, run to the other end of a football field, 100 yards, 2 squats, run back, 3 squats, 4 squats, 5 squats. I just happened to do it with a weight vest the other day, just because it was leg day, and that was good. You go all the way up to 20. That's 210 squats and 2,000 yards of running on a turf field. Feels pretty good. Give that a shot as a way to build up your leg tendons, leg muscles for that kind of endurance that you're going to need. Let's see. Due to extremely selective process of PSOAS, do you recommend ROTC students who aren't lucky to go there to go SWO and lat transfer? That is a way to get to BUD/S. If you're doing an officer program, that's what you have to do. There's no other way to get to BUD/S. If you don't get selected for PSOAS, you're going to have to do a lateral transfer from the fleet to get there. Same way if you're enlisted. If you don't get a BUD/S slot, while you're in the delayed entry program, you're going to have to go do another job for a couple of years and then transfer back in and see if you can get into BUD/S that way. So it is possible to do it that way, and that's what you have to do. Let's see. I think I skipped a few questions here. Okay, do you know if someone is average to slightly overweight with no overuse or structural injuries in training, gets down to an athletic lean size? Let's see, something popped up here. Would compromise any resilience in ruck running? No, that's fine. I mean, I was kind of that guy, 215 probably, and was able to get down to about 195 when I was at BUD/S. That's my BUD/S weight. And look, I wasn't the best runner there, but I've never failed anything. I would say running was my weakness. That was just a natural weakness. I was probably my natural, strength is actual strength, because I grew up lifting since 12, 13 years old, playing power sports. But no, you keep a pretty decent foundation of strength and durability if you have that strength background. And even if you just transition out of it for a few cycles and you focus on your muscle stamina and endurance, running, swimming, rucking, you're still going to maintain a reasonable amount of resilience / durability. But what you're going to gain out of that is more work capacity, and you're able to last longer, but you have that strength foundation still. So that's how you do it. Like a tactical athlete has to be good at all of those. You can't ignore any of them, because once you do, that weakness will be exposed near immediately once you show up at selection, just the way it is. So you got to get good at everything. And to get good at everything, you kind of have to cycle through all of the elements of fitness, because all the elements of fitness don't work well together when you're trying to get good at something while you're maintaining others. Right. I'll put a link in there, because I've been doing this tactical fitness periodization programming now for over 20 years. and it engages all the elements of fitness that you need to be a tactical athlete for selection, for post selection, for doing your job, all of those things, just different caliber of training to do that, but you still got to be good at everything. And it spreads it out through the year. Check it out, 20-year tactical fitness periodization article. I'll put it in the description for you. It's a good read. How should I train for MARSOC? Good question. I do have a Recon MARSOC training program, and there is swimming, there's running, there's rucking, there's high rep calisthenics, there's some load bearing activities. Once again, as a spec ops level tactical athlete, you need to get good at everything. So find your weaknesses. I'll put in there an assessment tool that Jeff Nichols and I created. It's kind of our assessment tool to see where you are on that tactical athlete spectrum. It's a link in the description below once I post this video. Read that because it's a really good tool to kind of rank yourself where what we recommend you to be. You may see that there's a couple things that you're really good at that you're blowing it away, but you're going to find something probably equal and opposite that you really suck at that is the complete opposite of it. So it might be, you might be a really good deadlifter and squatter and bench press and all that, but your calisthenics and your running are not so good. So, or vice versa. Okay, how important is it to run in sand to succeed in buds? Nothing but grass and trails here in Texas. You know what? Is it worth driving out to sand? No. However, if you're going on to the beach for a vacation, yes, you should be running in sand. I would highly recommend it. I lived an hour and a half away from the beach when I grew up in Florida. We would make trips out there to surf, do run, swim runs, things like that. It was a lot of fun. If you're going to go to the beach, make it a workout vacation. But I also found a couple of places where I grew up. There was a lot of farms. So I actually asked a guy if I could run around the edge of his farm that he had just plowed. And I just ran on, churned up dirt. That was helpful. I also found a riverbed that was dried up. And it was about 15 miles from my house. So I'd ride my bike out to that, run this riverbed for about 30, 40 minutes. And then I'd ride back home and I'd stop off at the pool, get a good swim in. So those were kind of my prep workouts that kind of matched everything that you needed. But yeah, I didn't live on a beach either, but we found one. I would try to get creative and see what you can find. I've had guys run on a kind of run circles on a what do you call it? Indoor volleyball court. That was all sand. Just to kind of feel it out. Yeah. See, got to get creative because it is helpful. Running in sand sucks. Can you fix bad posture from just working out? Yes, but you got to do it properly. I mean, if you just focus on one side of your body, you're not going to have good posture. You got to focus on front and back, left and right, top and bottom. All of those things have to balance out as well because bad posture is typically an imbalance of strength and muscle, muscle strength on one side or the other. So yes, I would recommend taking a look at the PT reset exercises. If you're talking about bad posture of the shoulders and upper back, it's just a series of upper back exercises that help balance out, a lot of push-ups that people do. Sometimes people just do way too many push-ups or bench press and they never do anything for their upper back. Next thing you know, they're internally rotated and they're walking around like this. Okay, a couple more. It's been almost 30 minutes. Been out, let's see, always been one of the top 5 lifter ruckers in my platoon, but I've only been able to average at best when running. That happens. I wouldn't sweat it. You're going to be good at things. You're going to be not so great at things. If you're winning something, I think that's a win. I was one of those guys that could not really swim that fast without fins, but put on a pair of fins. I was in the top 5 swim pairs in my class. Um, wasn't the fastest runner for 4 mile timed runs, but did really well when we did beach sprints. So you're going to have your victories. I would be happy with your victories, and then as long as you're not below average at anything, that's really good. As long as your average is above the standard, um, I wouldn't sweat it. Can you get better at running? Yes, absolutely. I would get on a running cycle, maybe do a running cycle without the additional lifting of heavy weights, just to see how that feels. So a true running cycle, maybe instead of lifting that 12 weeks, you're just doing more calisthenic based exercises for the legs, and see how that makes it work. I'll put a link into what I'm talking about, because I have those exercises there. Works pretty well. Let's see. What do we do here? Next TFR with Jeff Nichols. Hopefully, I'd like to get one in this week if we can get one in tomorrow. But he's been on travel. I've been busy. I just been like crushing this latest book I've been writing. Actually, writing 2 books right now. So just been real busy. I haven't been able to get on each other's schedule. So one book. This will be a fun one. One book is 100 pyramid workouts. So I've created, my publisher, he read one of my articles. I think I wrote an article a while back called Top 10 Pyramid Workouts. And he said, do you think you can do 100 of them? And I said, I don't know. And then I researched all my history of my database of workouts, and I had about 50 already created, run pyramids, swim pyramids, bike pyramids, rowing pyramids. So I took care of all the cardio side, and then we had weight pyramids and reverse pyramids, warm-up pyramids, calisthenic pyramids, the classics. I was able to create 100 different pyramids for a variety of everything: run, swim, row, lift, PT, all that. And then the other one is my spring summer lift cycle, which will be out this week. Just in time for spring. What do you know? So yeah, we'll get on each other's schedule probably this week, if not early next week. We didn't have prep when I was going for Buds. Buds prep did not exist prior to like 2005. So there was no prep. You used to go to boot camp, then you go to A school, and then while you're at A school, you worked out on your own, and then you went to Buds afterwards. That's how it was. And they have about the same attrition rate now as they did back then. So any tips on proper breathing techniques and holding the cadence when you feel like you need to increase rates for breathing? You know what? I would read the book Oxygen Advantage. Check that out. There's another one called Breathe. That's really good. Just they're doctors that teach you how to breathe. I've just learned from them over the years. I tend to breathe in through my nose, out my mouth. That helps slow down the heart rate a little bit. I get in a rhythm of breathing, just like you get in a rhythm of swimming breathing. Say you breathe every 4 or 5 strokes when you're swimming freestyle. You got to do the same thing when you're running. I tend to go 1, 2, 3 steps inhale, and then I tend to exhale real fast, through my mouth. So maybe 1, 2, sometimes 3 steps exhale, and then just get in that rhythm. So you kind of get in a rhythm, and then as you get a little faster, you probably have to change that cadence a little bit. It might go 2 to 1, it might go 3 to 2. 3 inhale, 2 exhale. You might even have to use your mouth to get some air in too. So, yeah, play around with it and see how that works for you. I found nose breathing to be very helpful. Breathing in my nose, out my mouth, especially during the winter. When it's a little colder, tends to hurt less. All right, few more questions, and this is a good question. Will swimming with fins make me faster without fins? I think so. It fixes your kick, because here's the deal: when you're doing flutter kicks with fins, or you mix in a scissor kick with fins, it forces you to do a proper kick. When you open and close your legs with a pair of fins. And then when you take off those fins, it's going to feel weird when you first do it, but it's going to fix that scissor kick for the combat swimmer stroke. It won't help you if you're doing a breaststroke kick, because you can't breaststroke with fins. So I would say yes to going from scissor kick or flutter kicks with fins into flutter kicks or scissor kick without fins. It will we'll do that. Best place to purchase your books? It depends. I mean, I got them everywhere. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at my website, stewsmithfitness.com. I have another Yahoo store that sells them. But you can get the books and the ebooks on my sites. Amazon's fairly limited to just my published books, which still, I think I have 14 published books over there too. So. Hey, Stu, I just wanted to say, oh, well, thank you. That's very nice. Here's the best place. Oh, eyes are bouncing. All right. What part of training pipeline did I enjoy the most? That's a good question. I'd say dive phase. I enjoyed dive phase. I've probably been scuba diving since I was 12, 13 years old. So that was probably why I even joined the Navy. Want to be a frogman anyway, was I love scuba diving. So dive phase, I would say, was really fun for me. I enjoyed that. But I also enjoyed third phase too. Shooting, demolition, patrolling, land navigation, all that was really cool too. So it's a cool job. But once you get through first phase, it just starts getting cooler. You're doing some really fun stuff. And then you take that and you multiply it by 10 when you're going through SQT. It's just even more fun. You're learning a lot more stuff. That's fun. It is a steep learning curve. So you have to be able to learn and retain a lot of information quickly and apply it quickly. But yeah, it's all fun. It's a great challenge. Okay. Somebody asked a question about fins again. Don't own fins. Would you recommend the IST rocket fins on Amazon? They're okay. I would get a couple of different kinds. I would get the big fins like that. You're going to have to use those if you're going through buds. If you're not going through buds, I would just get a pair of regular scuba fins like you'd get like Cressy frog fins. I like those a lot. I use those for scuba diving instead of the rocket fins or jet fins. But also get a little slip-on pair too, because you may find that your ankles need a progression to get into those rocket fins. I personally like this progression. I start off with sporty slip-on fins, SPORTI. I'll put a link into what I'm talking about. I usually get my stuff from swimoutlet.com, and they have a ton of good swim gear there. They don't have the rocket fins or things like that, but I would do this. I would get the sporty slip-on snorkel fins. And if you're trying to go prepare for buds, I'd get the jet fins. I like those better than the rocket fins. They look identical, except for they're just a little more pliable. They just bend a little bit easier. And, if you want to get a pair of rocket fins just to feel how they feel, the ones at buds, I think they have a little bit of both out there. They have some jet fins and rocket fins out there too. So you can take your pick when you're out there. I personally like the jet fins. All right. So here's the deal. If I didn't answer your question, please put it down in the question comment section below this video. Check out the description of the video because I'll put in a lot of links to what we just discussed. And if you guys have questions, send them my way. You can follow me here on YouTube or over at Instagram. Most people will email me if it's a longer type question, but if it's a quick question, you can thumb it on your phone. Yeah, StuSmithFitness.com. That's where you can find me. And especially check out the article section because I've just been blowing up the blog section of that website lately and getting some good posts in there. And they're mainly from your questions. You guys give me a lot of ideas about what I need to write about just by these series of questions. So thanks for asking the questions. Hope I answered them. If I missed yours, like I said, send it to me and I will get to it personally. So that is it. Stu Smith Live. Thanks for listening. And you guys have a good week and weekend. We'll see you next week.